My beloved child. They thought it was just another private conversation. They believed no one would ever hear those words. They never imagined the truth would be exposed. But what was discovered changed everything. Listen carefully, because this message carries a truth that many people around you have tried to hide. There are moments in life when people reveal their deepest feelings only when they believe nobody is listening. They guard their hearts in public, they choose careful words in front of others, and they pretend that certain emotions no longer exist. Yet when the walls come down and the masks disappear, the truth finds its way into the open. And that is exactly what happened. A conversation took place behind closed doors. It was never intended for your ears. It was never meant to reach the people who know you. It was supposed to remain a secret buried beneath fear, uncertainty, and hidden emotions. But destiny had another plan. The discussion began casually, almost as if your name would never come up. People talked about life, responsibilities, future plans, and the expectations others had placed upon them. They spoke about relationships and the pressure to move forward. They laughed at certain memories and dismissed others as unimportant. Everything seemed ordinary. Yet beneath the surface, something powerful was waiting to emerge. One simple question changed the entire atmosphere. The room became quieter. The energy shifted. The person everyone was listening to suddenly stopped speaking. Their expression changed. Their eyes drifted toward the floor as though they were confronting emotions they had spent a long time trying to escape. Someone asked about the future. Someone asked about love. And somehow, despite every effort to avoid it, the conversation led directly to you. The moment your name was mentioned, silence filled the room. It was not the silence of confusion. It was the silence that appears when a truth too powerful to ignore finally enters the space. Those who were present immediately noticed the change. The person who had been speaking confidently only moments earlier suddenly struggled to find words. Their voice softened. Their breathing slowed. They looked away from everyone around them as if they were seeing memories unfold right before their eyes. Don't skip. At first, they tried to pretend your impact was insignificant. They attempted to convince others that you were simply someone from the past. Someone whose role had already been completed. Someone whose chapter had ended. But the more they spoke, the more obvious the truth became. Every sentence revealed another layer of emotion. Every explanation created more questions. Every attempt to deny their feelings only exposed how deeply those feelings still existed. One person in the room noticed this immediately. They leaned forward and asked a question nobody expected. They asked, if this person means so little to you, why do you still talk about them the way you do? The room became completely silent again. No one moved. No one interrupted. Everyone waited for an answer. The answer never came right away. Instead, there was hesitation. There was reflection. There was emotion. Because deep inside, they knew the question had struck the center of a truth they could no longer hide. As the conversation continued, stories began to emerge. Memories that had been buried for months suddenly resurfaced. Moments that seemed forgotten were described in extraordinary detail. The way you spoke. The way you smiled. The way your presence made ordinary days feel different. Details that should have faded with time remained vivid inside their heart. Everyone listening realized something remarkable. This was not how people talked about someone they had forgotten. This was how people talked about someone who never truly left them. The realization spread throughout the room. Expressions changed. People exchanged glances. The truth was becoming impossible to ignore. What surprised everyone most was not the fact that they remembered you. It was the fact that they remembered everything. Tiny moments. Small conversations. Ordinary interactions that seemed insignificant at the time. They could recall details nobody expected them to remember. It was as if those memories had been protected and preserved regardless of how much time had passed. Don't skip. One person finally spoke up and asked the question everyone had been thinking. If all of this is true, then why aren't they still with you? The answer that followed shocked everyone. Because it wasn't anger. It wasn't resentment. It wasn't blame. Instead, it was sadness. A sadness so genuine that nobody knew how to respond. For the first time, they admitted that circumstances had created distance, but distance had never removed the connection. They confessed that life had become complicated. Expectations from others had grown heavier. Responsibilities had multiplied. Difficult choices had appeared. Yet despite everything, a part of them continued carrying thoughts of you wherever they went. The room grew quieter than ever before. People stopped interrupting. People stopped offering advice. People simply listened. Because they realized they were witnessing something deeply personal. Something real. Something that could not be manufactured. The conversation continued for much longer than anyone expected. Every new question uncovered another truth. Every new truth revealed another hidden emotion. Eventually, someone made a statement that nobody could forget. They said, "It sounds like you're still waiting for them." The reaction was immediate. Not because they answered, but because they couldn't. Their silence revealed everything. And in that moment, everyone understood what words could not explain. The conversation that was supposed to remain secret had exposed feelings far deeper than anyone imagined. What happened next would leave every person in that room completely speechless. Don't skip. The silence that followed that question felt heavier than anything that had been said before. Nobody rushed to fill the empty space. Nobody laughed. Nobody changed the subject. It was as if every person in that room had suddenly realized they were witnessing a truth that had been hidden for far too long. The person at the center of the conversation lowered their eyes and remained completely still. Seconds passed like minutes. The tension grew stronger with every passing moment. Everyone was waiting for an answer, but the answer had already been given through that silence. One of the people sitting nearby finally broke the tension and said something unexpected. They quietly admitted that they had noticed your name appearing again and again over the years. Not directly. Not openly. But in subtle ways. Whenever certain topics came up, the conversation somehow found its way back to you. Whenever happiness was discussed, memories connected to you appeared. Whenever regret was mentioned, your name seemed to linger in the background. The room immediately became interested. Suddenly others began sharing observations of their own. One person remembered a moment when someone had asked about the happiest period of their life. Without hesitation, they had described a time when you were present. Another remembered how they would sometimes become unusually quiet whenever they heard news that reminded them of you. Another recalled seeing them stare at old messages longer than anyone normally would. Piece by piece, the hidden picture started coming together. The person being discussed tried to dismiss these observations, but nobody was convinced anymore. Too many details were matching. Too many memories were pointing toward the same truth. The walls they had spent so long building were beginning to crumble. Every attempt to explain things away only made the reality more obvious. Don't skip. Then something happened that nobody expected. Someone pulled out an old memory. It wasn't a photograph. It wasn't a message. It wasn't even a recent event. It was a conversation from long ago. A conversation where they had openly described the kind of person they hoped to spend their future with. At the time, nobody had thought much about it. But now, hearing those words again, everyone noticed something shocking. The qualities they had described matched you almost perfectly. The kindness they admired. The strength they respected. The loyalty they valued. The way they wanted someone to understand them without explanations. Every detail pointed toward the same person. You. The realization spread across the room instantly. Several people exchanged stunned looks. One person actually laughed in disbelief and said, "You've been describing the same person all this time." The person at the center of the conversation didn't argue. They couldn't. Because deep down they knew it was true. For years they had convinced themselves they were moving forward. They had tried focusing on other possibilities. They had attempted to build a future that didn't involve thoughts of you. Yet somehow every path they imagined eventually led back to the same place. Every vision of happiness carried traces of your presence. Every dream of peace included qualities they had only ever found in you. The room became emotional. What had started as a simple discussion was turning into something much deeper. People were no longer analyzing a relationship. They were uncovering a hidden story. A story that had never truly ended. As more questions were asked, the truth continued emerging. They admitted there had been countless moments when they almost reached out. Countless moments when they wanted to say something. Countless nights when memories became impossible to ignore. Yet fear always stopped them. Fear of rejection. Fear of timing. Fear that too much time had passed. Fear that the opportunity had already disappeared. The confession stunned everyone. Because until that moment, many people had assumed they simply didn't care anymore. Now they were learning the exact opposite. Caring had never been the problem. Caring had been the reason everything felt so difficult. Don't skip. One person sitting quietly near the back of the room suddenly asked the most powerful question of the entire night. If you had the chance right now to tell them one thing, what would you say? The atmosphere changed instantly. Every eye turned toward them. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The room waited. For a long moment they couldn't answer. Their emotions were visible now. The carefully controlled expression they had maintained throughout the conversation was beginning to crack. The memories were too strong. The feelings were too real. Eventually they took a deep breath and began speaking. What they said left everyone speechless. They admitted that no matter how much life had changed, some feelings had never disappeared. They admitted that certain connections could not be replaced simply because time had passed. They admitted that they had met many people, experienced many situations, and traveled through countless stages of life, yet something about you remained impossible to forget. The room fell completely silent. Not a single person interrupted. Because every word sounded genuine. Every word carried weight. Every word revealed a truth that had been hidden for far too long. And then came the statement that nobody expected. A statement so honest that several people immediately looked away in shock. They quietly said that one of their greatest fears was realizing too late that the person they truly wanted had been you all along. The impact of those words was immediate. Nobody knew how to respond. Nobody had expected such vulnerability. Nobody had expected the secret conversation to reveal emotions this deep. But the biggest revelation was still waiting. Because before the conversation ended, someone asked one final question. A question so direct that the entire room froze. And the answer that followed would change everything they thought they knew about you forever. Don't skip. The final question hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. No one wanted to ask it, yet everyone needed to hear the answer. After everything that had been revealed, after every memory, every confession, and every hidden emotion had come to light, there was only one thing left to know. Someone looked directly at them and quietly asked, if they walked into your life today, if you had one real chance to choose again, what would you do? The room became completely silent. For a moment, they simply stared ahead. Then, with a voice filled with emotion, they admitted that some people enter your life for a reason, but a very rare person enters your soul and leaves a mark that time can never erase. They confessed that no matter how hard they had tried to move forward, every road eventually led back to thoughts of you. They said that success felt incomplete during certain moments, celebrations felt quieter than they should have, and some victories never felt as meaningful because there was always a part of them wondering whether you were there to witness them. Several people were visibly shocked. Others lowered their heads. No one expected such honesty. Then came the discovery that left everyone speechless. The recording captured one final confession. They admitted that despite everything that had happened, despite all the distance, obstacles, misunderstandings, and time apart, they still believed that meeting you had changed their life forever. They said you had taught them lessons nobody else could teach, made them feel emotions nobody else had awakened, and left behind memories that continued to guide them even when you were no longer present. At that point, nobody in the room doubted the truth anymore. The secret conversation had revealed what years of silence had hidden. It revealed that your impact was far greater than anyone realized. It revealed that your presence had never truly disappeared from their heart. And it revealed that some connections remain alive even when the world believes they are over. As the recording ended, the room remained silent. No one rushed to speak. No one tried to change the subject. Everyone simply sat there, processing what they had just heard. because they understood they had witnessed something rare. Not a performance. Not an excuse. Not a temporary emotion. But a genuine truth that had finally found its way into the open. And long after the conversation ended, one realization stayed with everyone who heard it. Sometimes the most important feelings are the ones people hide the longest. Sometimes the deepest truths are spoken only when someone believes nobody is listening. And sometimes, a secret conversation reveals what the heart has been trying to say all along. That was the discovery. That was the secret. And that was the moment that left everyone completely speechless.